everybody, welcome to the MashNDrum Whiskey Room. My name is Jason C, and if you're a subscriber, thanks so much for the support, for coming back and watching. If you're new to the channel, looking for the latest in whiskey and bourbon news and reviews, you have found the right channel, so hit that subscribe button below and hit that bell notification so you know when I'm releasing a new video, or you could join in one of my fun live streams. The Masters Collection from Woodford Reserve has always been not only their higher end and limited edition offering, but a way to showcase their creativity and innovation. The latest release is their Chocolate Malted Rye, but don't let the name fool you, this is actually a bourbon, and it's today's review on the MashNDrum. Since about 2013, Woodford Reserve has released bottles like Cherrywood Smoked Barley, Brandy Cask Finish, Pinot Noir Cask Finish, and even a straight malt. Nowadays, we are seeing 2 releases a year from the Masters Collection, including a spring batch proof release, which is one of my favorites, and a fall release, which is what we have today with the 2019 Chocolate Malted Rye Bourbon release. What's cool about the new Woodford Reserve Chocolate Malted Rye Bourbon is it uses a grain flavor technique that I've seen recently from a good amount of craft distilleries. The idea is to toast the rye grain, the second dominant grain in this mash bill, long enough to the point where it begins to bring out some more of the natural sugars, and you start getting this roasted chocolate flavor to it. The rye malt was roasted to a level that its natural sugar is caramelized into a dark chocolate note, said Woodford Reserve Master Distiller Chris Morris in a prepared statement. He also added that this special bourbon even surprised me as it matured in our warehouses. Each time I tasted it, the chocolate notes became even more pronounced. As you can see on the front of the bottle, this does say Chocolate Malted Rye, which I know for some was a little misleading, but be assured that this is a bourbon. This new bourbon, said to be a one-time offering only, is bottled at Woodford's signature 90.4 proof with a unique mash bill of 70% corn, 15% chocolate malted rye, and 15% Distillers Malt. It's available globally now for around $130. So generally, Woodford's mash bill for their Distiller Select and Double Oak Bourbon is 72% corn, 18% rye, and 10% malted barley. So having a unique mash bill on this one makes it even a little bit more interesting. So let's go to the color and see what we get first. So you just have a nice, a little bit of a darker color here than I expected. It's got a nice kind of a darker caramel color, maybe honey. You think chocolate malted rye, you might think it might be even darker, like a bar of chocolate, but not the case here. It's got some decent legs. It runs down the glass a little bit. It's got that typical Woodford Reserve 90.4 proof. So for those of you familiar with Woodford, you would be pretty familiar with the proof point on this one. Probably usually pretty easy drinkers. So let's go into the nose and see what we get here. So jumping right out of the glass, the first thing is you do get a bitter dark chocolate note here. I'm also getting coffee grounds. This is like a mochaccino. If you ever had like a mochaccino at a Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or a good coffee shop, you get like hints of chocolate and coffee right away on the nose. It's really nice. I'm getting some honey roasted peanut in there. There's a slightest hint of cherry here that I'm getting too, which is actually kind of nice. I almost wish it was a little bit stronger, given that chocolate, coffee, cherry mixture would be really nice. Good amount of oak too. Now I've taken a few pours of this. You can see gotten it past the neck. The necks on the Woodford Reserve Masters Collection bottles are really long, so kind of getting it out of that neck and down to the shoulder really kind of brings out some more flavors. You could definitely smell the rye grain in here. The chocolate, that bitter chocolate note, is really overpowering. But even beyond the chocolate, there is a good amount of caramel and vanilla in there too. Your typical bourbon flavors, but that dark chocolate bitterness and that little bit of a coffee ground note is really kind of overtaking the nose. So let's go into a first sip, see what we get. Cheers. All right, so first sip. It's a little bit thin on the palate. It's 90.4. It's not going to be super viscous. It's definitely a little bit light on the palate. But the flavors that stick around here, vanilla's right up front, and then all of a sudden that bitter chocolate kind of takes over, kind of hits the side of your palate. The rye spice definitely leaves a little bit of a tingling on the back end there, but it kind of went through a little bit quick. Let me go for another sip here. Cheers. Yeah, this drinks like a pure chocolate mocha chino coffee. It's really interesting. It kind of starts at the front of the palate with this with that tingly rye spice, and then all of a sudden, once it hits the sides, it's just all like coffee and chocolate to me. Really brings out some nice flavors. The cherry note I'm getting on the very, very end, but ever so slightly. Get some oak there. There is a nice lingering spice to it as well. It's not overpowering. It's a very easy to drink bourbon, but it's extremely just dark chocolate, caramel, and coffee forward to me. Let's go for another sip here. Cheers. Yeah, with each sip, the flavors are kind of getting thinner and thinner. It's very light, but what you're left with is just really that chocolate, a little bit of that honey roasted peanut characteristic too has kind of popped up a little bit as well. I'm getting more of the cherry now as I keep sipping on it to go with the chocolate and the coffee flavor. But really the star of the show here is that chocolate rye. That chocolate rye is just lighting up the palate. You could taste that roasted rye grain in there. You could almost feel like you could almost chew on it. It's very strong. Let's go for one last sip here. All right, so whole experience here, guys. On the front of the palate, that tingly rye spice is there, a little bit of vanilla, a little bit of caramel. As soon as it hits mid-palate though, chocolate, mocha, a little bit of spiciness, tiny bit of cherry. As soon as it hits the back of the palate, it starts coming down. There's really not a long finish to this at all. I would say this is a short finish, so you're not gonna feel it. If you're used to drinking Woodford Reserve at 90.4 proof, you're going to like the finish on this because it's not overpowering. All the flavors in the front to mid-palate. It leaves that little bit of finish, but you're not going to really feel anything going down. It's a very smooth experience. But yeah, the cherry, some toasted oak on the back end. But this is really just all chocolate, mocha, a little bit of coffee, and some vanilla and a hint of cherry. So is this a $130 bottle of bourbon in my opinion? I don't think so. Even though I can appreciate the creativity with what Woodford Reserve is doing here, for $130, I would want this bourbon to be a little bit higher of a proof and have some more viscosity to it. It just jumps through the palate way too quickly, only at 90.4 proof, and just leaves you with the chocolate, coffee, maybe a hint of cherry and some oak. For $130, I want more complexity to this bourbon. I want to taste more of what those cherry flavors with a higher proof, and I want to taste more of that roasted, that chocolate rye in there, what it can actually do, with a little bit more viscosity to it. Now, while this is a really interesting bourbon, and if you're looking for something different, I would recommend a try before you buy on this one, being $130. Now, with that said, if you're a Woodford fan and love lower proof bourbon and sit mochachinos all day, you may actually love this, but still, $130. In the meantime, the Master's Collection Batch Proof and the Woodford Reserve Double Oaked will still reign supreme for me from Woodford Reserve. All right, guys, well, I hope you enjoyed this review for the 2019 Woodford Reserve Master's Collection Chocolate Malted Rye. Hope you enjoyed it. If you haven't yet, hit the subscribe button below. Please hit that like button. If you haven't yet, find me on Instagram and find me on Twitter. Let me know if you've had this yet, what you think of it, if you think it's worth $130. Always love talking with you guys, and as I always say, it's not about the whiskey, it's the people you share it with. So cheers, and I'll see you next time on The Mash and Drum. Take care.